So I'm here with Master Astrologer Faye Blake. In this session, we're going to take a look at a chart that she's found and wants to explore with us. So Faye, guide us through where you'd start, what you'd prioritize, and how you might articulate some of these placements.
Okay, so this is a chart of one of my clients, and as I said in the beginning, in the introduction, with how I work, I like to get questions beforehand before people come. One of the things I often get is referrals from other people, like psychologists or psychotherapists or other people that work in healing and helping professions. So sometimes there's a discussion that goes on, and sometimes the clients are already in therapy, so they're already in a state where they want to work on themselves. So I already know that with this client, she's come through the therapeutic route and wants to know a little bit more about why she was stuck. So if I look at, she wrote quite a long email about what she wants to do with me, which I always like. My approach is that we're in it together, right? So you mentioned co-creation, Frank, in the first part of the interview, that we co-create with our clients, and that's what I try and do. So I try and do this together because, as I said before, she knows more about how her life works and how this chart works than I do. But I'm always listening. So what she said about what she wanted to do in the sessions, well, she just came for one session, so I have to hone it down because I'm only going to, I do 2-hour sessions usually for this, she wanted to look at shame and being self-critical. So she's always felt deeply, she said she always felt deeply ashamed of both her parents, and she had this thing where she always wanted to make it nicer than it actually was, so that she's coming in with that sort of question: why do I always do that? Why do I always make things look paint a pretty picture? She said, I had, as a young child, I had a really negative self-image. I thought I was fat and I was ugly and I had freckles and I really didn't like myself. And she said, I still struggle a bit with that, so she wants to look at that. And she wants to know what kind of exercise and things she could do for that. And she talks about in relationships she feels lonely and scared quite often. So there's quite a lot in her in her email beforehand that I'm thinking, God, where am I going with, where am I going to start with this? And then she says, I was scared of my mother, and I didn't have had nothing to do with my father really. And my brother and sisters, she talked a bit about brothers and sisters and how that worked as well. So one of the things I'm listening for is, I'm listening all the time. She mentioned the mother a couple of times, so my eye immediately goes to that moon Pluto, right at the bottom of the screen. Yeah. And you can see that there's quite a lot going on with the Mercury Mars opposite that. So there's quite a kind of focus on that, and that's one of the things I want to look at is going to be that how does that work for her? So I'm interested in how that worked. I can already hear some of it. And the other thing is I'm interested in is she's got a lot of Pisces energy, right? So she's got the Sun in Pisces, she's got Mercury and Mars in Pisces, and she's also got a Sun picking up. It's a sesquiquadrate, I think, with Neptune. But for me, that's a deeper aspect that makes her even more Piscean. So there's going to be a lot of Piscean. I'm thinking kind of self-sacrifice, making it better than it looks, making it prettier than it really is. When down at the bottom of the chart, in the 4th house, this is a cock house system, and I'll show you why in a minute that I use that. But down at the bottom of the chart is this underlying sort of moon Pluto rage or passion or whatever that is, anger, actually rage probably. Right. So the discussion was about how she felt about her mother, and the reason I use cock houses is that with the Huber age point, you have to use cock houses to do that. And the reason I find it with this sort of client so valuable is that you can see the age you have 6 years in each house. So you start at the ascendant, which is when you're born, and then at the first house, you're 6. The second house, Caspia, and then the second house is from 6 to 12, and then the third house is from 12 to 18, and then you can see from 18 to 24, which is the fourth house, opposite the 10th house, right, that there's a huge amount of things going to be triggered in that age group. So I'm going to be really interested in what's happening around that time. Because the reason for doing that is the client can then see where the pattern comes from and what it is and how they felt. Right, so we got into a conversation with that. But one of the things that she came up with through talking about her mother in the conversation is she said, one of the things my mother always told me about was my birth. And I thought, well, this is really interesting because she's got at 9 degrees, if that's roughly right, her ascendant, that picks up that moon Pluto and that Mars Mercury, right? So, which says something about the birth. Often, you know, the ascendant is about the birth moment and the aspects to it add colour to that. And she said, when I was born, my mother was really, really angry. She said that she was fighting with everybody. It was not a good time for me to be born because the relationship, it was wrong timing, not a good time to be born. The relationship between a mother and father was not going well. And so she's come in with this kind of energy, if you like, but also her mother was so angry that she tried to stop her being born, right? She tried to stop the contractions and so much so that the doctor said, I'm going, if you don't cooperate, I'm going to leave the room. So, and that was told as a kind of family story. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, this is like a moon Pluto as a mother that wants to control everything straight away. So, one of the patterns that she really recognised was that she tries to do things, and then she gets stopped. Right? There's some kind of thing in the way, and so she just gives up. As a Pisces, she just thinks, well, what's the point? There's no point in me fighting, or you know, you need a bit of Mars to be born. There's no point in that. So what you're trying to get in the therapy aspect of this is, what did you decide about yourself? What's this deep pattern from birth that she's got? And when we went back there, she felt completely powerless about being born. Right? She didn't have anything to say about it. She couldn't, you know, no matter how much she tried to be born, there was an obstacle. And that was really quite a painful moment for her, but she realised how the pattern went through for the rest of her life. So how whenever she tried to stick up for herself, she was, you know, Mars and Pisces, it didn't go anywhere. So her really, really deep strategy in life is to do that. She realised that she saw it, she could see how that worked. Right, so was that clear? I mean, if you're an astrologer, you understand where I'm coming from with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
you can really see how that works. Yeah. Do you have questions about the technique? The technique's pretty clear, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yes, yes, they can probably go online and check out a bit more about the Huber. You must have on your website a few links as well to that?
Yes, I do. On the astrology, on the School for Astrology, I've got some there's some free articles and free resources. But in my blog, I've sometimes written about Huber as well. So if you go to my fayeblake.nl, there's a free blog that you can sign up to. But I've been writing a blog every month since 2006. So you can search on Huber or series, which is my other favourite thing to be talking about, hence the trees, as my choice of donation. Yeah.
And the school website, which might have something on there as well. What's that?
Amsterdam School of Astrology. So it's asastrology.nl.
.nl, right?
Yeah, .nl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's got the apprenticeships and the free resources and articles and links to other things. Yeah, so one of the things that came out of this when we were in the regression, we did a slight regression back to feeling as it was as a baby, that she was so angry. She was angry, but she was scared. So, and she said her mother still doesn't look at her and doesn't is sort of depressive. But one of the things that came out of the session was she says, yeah, I realised that as a child, my mother always said I was really happy on my own. I played on my own. And so she realised one of the patterns was that her mother was okay and not angry and not making, not being fighting, and the sister was also part of the whole dynamic with the Mercury up there. That when she was happy, when she was doing Venus and Aries and doing spontaneous fun things as a child, her mother was really happy. So she does that Venus, she does that and makes everything nice and doesn't do the other bit. So one of her patterns was, if I was happy, she was happy. So she realizes she still does that today in her life. If other people are happy, then, if I'm happy, then other people are happy. If I put on a nice smiley face, then other people are happy. And then I don't get into deep shtick.
Do you think it's linked also to the process of her being on her own as well?
Yes, that was the other thing, indeed, because that was the Sun Uranus she has as well, which is in conjunct with a quincunx. We talked quite a lot about that in the session as well. So she felt totally alone. And when she hit 22, when she hit by Huber, that moon Pluto and all of that, she left home, and then her father got ill, and then she broke contact with her sister. So you can see at 22, she's starting to try and fix whatever that was about, that with the sister, the Mercury, with the Pluto, she broke. And with the moon Mars, she broke. And then after that, her mother got sick. So that was a real dilemma for her because she's a Pisces. She wants to look after people. So, but she said what she learned is I can never say what I feel. I'm made to look ridiculous. That's also part of the Sun Uranus, is that she didn't fit in the family. She was different. She was alone. She felt she's always been on her own, and that, there's a real dilemma in this horoscope between being a Pisces who cares for somebody and wanting to be independent, but wanting to be part of something that's really close and connected, but feeling like she's on her own all the time. Now, Sun Uranus can be, we talked a lot about this, Sun Uranus can be really, really good, because it can be that you embrace being different and being special and being an innovator and being whatever that is. This is a very creative part of her, with being a Pisces and with Uranus. But if the experiences was that she's all on her own, as you said, that she's independent, and that's been a negative experience for her as a child. She was the one that was never understood, or she was always different, or she didn't fit in the family, or whatever. So that's a negative experience of Uranus. It's abandonment, really. I see it as abandonment, often from the whole family, but certainly from the father. So with the son.
And
so
it's a people pleaser thing, isn't it, as well?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because she doesn't dare to be rebellious or different, or because that's been a negative experience for her, that people just say, oh, you got her, there she is again, being weird or whatever. I mean, astrologers often have a lot of Uranian energy, so we often go, we're not taken seriously, or we're weird, or we're pseudo whatever we are. So, but Uranus is really, really painful. I think when you get into regression, it's that total abandonment of being all on your own in a dangerous world. And her original birth, if you like, is an experience of the world where she has to watch out because people are going to stop her doing whatever. So one of the things we worked on is but you made it, but you're here. You really wanted to come, and you're here, and good for you, So she's done a lot of work after this, and she's doing a lot better, but because she's been working with a therapist as well. But I think it was a really moving, for me, really deeply moving session, as a lot of them are. If you dare to talk about some of the if you can use the chart as a questionnaire, if you like, to get into what's the patterns and what's really going on. So, of course, part of that's intuition, but part of it's just listening to what planet it is and how does that work. And the Huber system of saying what happened when you were 22, 24, you can hear it. You can hear the moon Pluto opposite the Mercury, Mars. You can hear you know, all the arguments.
And I'm assuming there'll be a stage later where it gets reactivated.
I think it's now. I haven't seen her for a while. This I saw her in, I think, 2018. I think I said in the recording that 2020 will be the year. I can't remember if that's right. I've seen quite a few people lately, but yeah, I think that's when it's all triggered again.
Right.
It's this year. So I know she's moving right along this year. So because the opposite side is often the healing of whatever that was about. So of the moon Pluto at 24 will be, or 22 would be at 57, 58, or 59, that kind of age, which I think she probably is around about now. So, you know, that's often the healing of that. And she has got contact with her sister again after that. So that's interesting that the Mercury's up there with the Chiron. And, you know, she's taken back her power, really, which is what the moon Pluto's about, is feeling empowered rather than powerless. So,
And I imagine the Pluto versus the Pisces would be about, do I hold on and do I let it control me, or do I let it go and forgive and find some way to be free from it?
It's a very difficult opposition, I think, when you have that sort of background. But the one thing about Plutonic people is they do want to do the work usually. They're not afraid of doing the emotional work. So they do want to go there even though it's painful. So, you know, the work for her is seeing how much she's been a victim or been nice to everybody. And underneath how she said, I can't believe that I'm still so angry about this birth, you know, still, you know, because she's done a lot of therapy. So, yeah.
It's interesting that she came to you with a clear idea of what she wanted to tackle, and maybe you prompted that by asking her to consider that. So, and or maybe she could have been somebody that buried that and was talking about succeeding, and underneath really is the pain that's not getting explored. But I imagine that you probably attract more of the types who are entrusting that with you, to focus on that.
Well, I think if you're getting people through other therapists that want, you know, a little bit more clarity on timing sometimes, they already have sorted that out. But what I find is it works the other way too. So if I'm doing vocational work, and like for her, I'd be looking at what she might be good at. I mean, we did look at some of this as well. But you know, I'd be looking at what one of her things she's called to do is use that Pisces and that Neptune. If I'm using Sun as a vocation, you know, what does that Sun in the 11th mean with that Pisces, you know, and the Neptune and Ceres, you know, because Ceres is quite closely sextile that Sun. Then you know, that's something that therapists wouldn't do. But what you can do, if she came for vocation, I'd be talking a lot about how she could use that Ceres in terms of, you know, sticking up for people, or in the green movement, or circle economy, or, you know, those kinds of things, what Ceres represents. There's a lot on my blog about that as well. So if she came for vocation, one of the things I can do, when you find that, then people often say, oh, but I can't do that because, you know, I've always had this problem, or I've always attracted bosses. She might attract, if it's working negatively with Sun Uranus, what she really wants is a boss that gets her emotionally but lets her get on with it, you know. But she might be attracting really, really a negative Uranian boss where she's not seen at all. So one of the things I then giving back to a therapist is to say, okay, here's what I think a block is to do with this. Go and work on that with someone else. So that works both ways. Right, so sometimes you're finding blocks, and if you're not a therapeutic astrologer, you can't really work on them, but you can refer by helping people define, because when you go just to therapy, therapists haven't got the tools that we have. They have to use all sorts of other things to find out what's going on, where I can look at this chart and say, yeah, got to work on the moon, Pluto, Mars, you know, and what that might be about. So yeah, it works both ways.
And what I found as well, you mentioned astrocartography, locational astrology, but transits, directions, progressions, the Huber, age point that you've referred to. These are all things that other professionals don't have. We have timing. We can say yes, we can understand the issue, but now, no, next year is a great time to work on that. We can, there's having those timing tools or even locational tools gets people. I remember you teaching for the LSA some years ago, saying, if you really want to understand your sun Uranus or your Mars, your moon Pluto or your Mars Mercury, go to a place where it's angular, go to a
Yes,
part of the world and
yeah,
experience it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So there are very practical ways, literally, of timing, so you can do it that month because that's when it's the season to do it, but also the place.
absolutely, yes, absolutely. And I mean, when I was working with the career counsellors, and when I first ran the vocational courses here, we did it together. So they brought in their tools, and I did the astrology. It was for astrologers. And they were, what she said was, one of them said was, she was absolutely gobsmacked at how useful it was for vocational, how much information we can get out of the chart and how useful that was, and all the things they don't have. In vocational work, they have to use questionnaires or, whatever. And the thing about questionnaires is you're filling them in yourself, so you can say whatever you like, because we all have blind spots anyway, even if you're trying to do it honestly. So they were literally thought it was just such an amazing tool for working with vocations blocks, because they do all those things as well, but they have to work much harder to find out what they are. So yes, but certainly I love astrocartography because I don't like the way a lot of people do it, to say, go to where Venus is on your birthday, and then on Venus on the MC, and you'll meet the love of your life. I mean, I don't. You can't just you can't just take Venus out of your chart and say, oh, I'm going to meet an Aries, and it's going to be wonderful. You're taking the rest of your chart with you, and so you're going to be confronted whatever the energy is in the place you go to, indeed. But actually, that's one of the things I like about not putting in the aspects to the ascendant and the MC, is that middle piece of the aspect pattern, as I always call that your sort of crystal, so it's what you're made up of. It's the dynamic of you from inside, and then that moves going around like that as you move around the world. You'll have a different, that the pointy bit that goes to Moon Pluto at the bottom of the chart will be will be in different houses in different places in different parts of the world, and you can see that crystal moving as you're sort of in a dynamic, if you like. But you can't you're always going to take that with you. You can't say, well, I'm going to just do my Moon Pluto somewhere and forget about the rest of the chart. No,
Mm.
So, but an excellent tool for doing more work on it. Yes.
Yeah. You can run, but you can't hide, I guess. Yes.
Exactly.
So, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, or are we wrapping it up? How do you? Is there anything left?
No, I don't think so. I think I think one of the things is just to sum it up. I think I work together. It's a co-creative process. I think for me, clients know a lot more than we do. And the other thing I say in the book is that clients love to come more than once. That we can do more sessions with them. So we don't have to. I think at the beginning we try and fit everything we ever saw in this chart into one session, and clients actually think they can only come, once a year or once every 10 years or something, whereas they actually like coming if they've got the money. They like coming, a couple of times a month, or for periods when they're going through something. Transits triggering a sun or something. Got Pluto on the sun or something. They might want a sort of bit of support every couple of weeks for a few months, and I have clients that do that. They come for a few periods, and then I don't see them for a year, and then they come back and they think, oh God, I've got something else going on. So then we can look at transits and progressions and whatever else, and to help them through that. So I give a discount of people pay up front for a few sessions as well. So, and some clients love that. So we can do that. And the other thing I'd say is that we sometimes with my vocation, with the structure I've got in the vocation, I've had a couple of outplacement type clients as well, that where the companies have paid for their whole number of sessions for them, and then I charge normal company rates. So and that the clients find that really helpful as well. And I think I've had 3 or 4, I think, that have done that where the client has actually paid. And they've ended up with going through a process that has given them a much more authentic job sometimes to what they really like doing. Because I think we don't get fired or made redundant or whatever for nothing. You know, it's time to move along, maybe. So they found it really useful process. I think I had somebody that's done that. But yeah, I'll just read this last one because she's a Pisces, so it's on my services website. But I just love the the language of it. She said, "Faye helped me tremendously to navigate a rough sea." During this period of great transition, I'd lost my job at an organisation close to my heart, and I found direction again. Like a temporary harbour, she helped me anchor. I just love this because she's a Pisces. She sparked off lots of ideas. She threw in the occasional joke. She handed me a tissue, and she encouraged me. So that, summing that up, that was a lovely reward for me because that's exactly what I try to do. But I just love the language that she used as a Pisces, and she works for a volunteer organisation now, so, so that's perfect.
You got her in touch and with who she is. Thank you.
Yeah, she wasn't too far off, but yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for supporting treesforcities.org and for your expertise and for sharing it generously. So thank you again, Faye. And people can check out your website, fayeblake.nl.
Yes.
And AS for sugar, so Amsterdam School, asastrology.nl.
Yes, if you go to just the fayeblake.nl one, the other ones are all on there anyway, so you'll find them through that one. So if you've forgotten, yeah.
Okay.
So thanks, Frank, to you too. Thanks for
Thank
organizing
you.
this, and it's very generous of you to donate as well. So I really appreciate the way you're doing that for selling astrologers. So
it's great. I think everyone benefits that way, and that's I think we need more insights from everyone. I think we need all the help we can get sometimes, particularly in such a crazy year.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, and yeah, thank you for your time, Faye.
Okay, you too, Frank. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.